Welcome to Component Studio 2. So this, honestly, probably could go for 5 hours easily, based on the discussion we just had before we started actually having a discussion. But my goal is really to kind of give you a little hint about what the state of Component Studio 2 is, and more importantly, kind of give you a beginner's crash course on how do you build something in Component Studio 2, because I think just showing you how to use Component Studio 2 will both answer a lot of questions and spark new ones, right? I will go for as long as you like tonight, but I was hoping to, be done in about an hour. But if you guys have questions, I can stay later and we can go over the individual ones, but we'll probably call the presentation after an hour. Anyway, so thank you for coming, and feel free to shout out questions as we go. I'm probably not going to be looking up as I've got lots going on here, but so shout it out or make some noise or something so that I notice that you have a question, okay? All right, let's go. So this is Component Studio 2, and I should show you first that when you go to Component Studio 1, you can get to Component Studio 2 right here. It's the Component Studio 2 Alpha, and you will notice right at the bottom here that it says this is in fact an alpha and it will be buggy and all kinds of other stuff. That said, I made all of the games that I brought here to Protospiel on Component Studio 2, and so did a few other people. So it is stable enough to use, but that said, there's going to be bugs. It is software after all. So, okay. So I thought that what might be interesting is to actually create something that you're familiar with. And oh, I'm sorry, I need to pause for one moment. Heather would like to make a disclaimer.
JT is about to show you how to make Uno. Please don't make Uno. We will not print it for you. Bad example, bad JT.
Okay. With that out of the way, I'm about to show you how to make Uno in Component Studio 2. Actually, I started off by making a regular deck of playing cards in Component Studio 2, and I did make it, and it works great. But it turns out that a regular deck of playing cards is actually more complicated than you would think because of the way it grids things out. So I decided that might be too much for the very first introduction to Component Studio 2, but I will make a video about how that works and put that out on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see how to do that, you'll still be able to get that. That said, when you come into Component Studio 2, you will be greeted by a page where you can create a game with this little button right here. Very simple, you just name it. Game is the thing that replaced project in Component Studio 1. So if you had a project in Component Studio 1, you will have a game in Component Studio 2. Then, once you have created a game, you can click into it, and once you are at the game, you have all kinds of tabs. All of those things that used to be separate pages along the top up here, plus a lot more, are all right here. So you could, for instance, go into the font system. The default font system has a lot more search abilities. It has things like tags in here, so that you can do that sort of stuff. So there's lots of cool stuff in here, and it's got 4,000 fonts. So that's 4 times more fonts than came with Component Studio 1. So anyway, you have all kinds of things that you can do. But if you want to go ahead and create a new design, you don't even have to create a data set first. You can literally just hit Create Design, title it to, I don't know, testing, and then literally hit Create Design, and it will create a new data set for you as part of creating the new design. So you can literally just get right into it. But in this case, I'm going to actually steal this data set that I had used before, and I'm going to rename this to Live at CrafterCon. Oh, I've turned on my caps lock. Okay, anyway. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so I've created my new project. I can still get in here and edit all of those things, but I'm going to go ahead and hit Design, and let's just get straight into it. So this looks a lot like Component Studio 1, right? It's still got your selector up here, your back and forth, your face and back. One new thing is that it's got a zoom in here, so you can actually zoom out, zoom, get it in to fit whatever size window that you have. So it actually works really, really well on phones and tablets. And another new thing that you'll note is that there are groups, layer groups. So what you used to think of as steps in Component Studio 1 are now layers, and there are layer groups that contain those layers. So if I would like to add something, let's go ahead and add a box here. And we're going to rename that to our background, like so. Let's rename that one to background box. And let's rename our group up here to background. Oops. Like so, something like that. And we're going to go into, let's go into fill for this box. And let me show you how to bring in some data. And I'm going to go back and show you all of the stuff that I've got pre-made here, like the data set and fonts and all that stuff a little later. But I just wanted to get right into the design part to start with. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, good. So I want to change the color of this box because obviously Uno cards aren't all red, right? So I'm going to click. I can type right into this field. I could literally type blue or whatever I want right into this field. But if I click this little three-dotted button here, it brings up the sidebar, which is really the core of Component Studio 2. There's this little sidebar for every single field in Component Studio 2 that'll give you ways to do stuff. So in this case, we're working with a color. So it automatically brings up a color selector for us. So we can just kind of slide around in here and pick colors to our heart content. Or it shows us the calculated value right here from what we've typed in right here, right? So if I pick this, it's going to fill in a new color here, and it's going to show the calculated value there. And if I hover over this field, the same thing is happening here. So this is what I typed in, this is what it calculated, and that's more important once you start using variables. So let's do that quick. Down at the bottom of here, there are all these things called shortcuts, and these are menus to give you variables. So in our case, we want a row of data, so I'm going to click row, and I'm going to choose that I want the color from my data set's row of data, right? So I'm going to pick that. That puts it into my clipboard. You see that right down here, right? And I can paste that into this field now. So this is my user entered value is row.color, but my calculated value is this, because that's what's actually came from the row. So I can see that I've filled in row.color here, but if I hover over it, I can see what that value actually is, what was actually typed into the row. So that's interesting. That's data that you wouldn't normally get to see in Component Studio 1, and it helps greatly when you're trying to figure out, why is this red? This wasn't supposed to be red. Well, yeah, it was. So anyway. Now, if I switch then to like a wildcard in Uno would be what color? Black, right. So if I switch, now I've got that in there because it's filling in the row.color. So if I look at my, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to go to the data set just yet. Let's get a little further along. Something else that you get with a Uno card is the border is, that's right, borders are white. So let's go ahead and actually put a border onto this thing. We're going to do a color-based border. We're going to change the stroke color to white. And again, I could go in here and type it in, or use the selector, but I can just type it in out here. Every field is just typable. So I've got a white border. I want the stroke width to be, let's say 75. There we go. Now 75 isn't enough. It's only going to the bleed right now, right? So do you see this out here, this white border on the red? Let me turn off the, do you see where the red line, the cut line is? And it's just turned white. If I turn this off, let me turn it back off to none. Okay, see it's black if I look at here. But now if I turn it back on, it goes to, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? Color, row, 100%. Hey, that should be there. Oh, I changed the fill. Okay. Thank you. Okay, there we go. So now it's back. All right. The problem is that the border, by default, its stroke alignment, where am I going to position the stroke, is going to be right on the center. So here we got stroke alignment at 50, if I change this to, I can't remember if I need to change it to 0. Let me see here. There we go. So now my stroke alignment is on the inside. If I did it on the outside, if I change it to 100%, it would go to the outside of where we started, which means you won't even see it because it's off the edge. So you're actually able to do like crazy things now that you couldn't do before. You have insane control over these things. Honestly, you probably don't care about this. I just wanted to show you that you have insane control, right? We're not going to get into this kind of weeds detail as we go on. I just wanted to show you that you can do so many more things in Component Studio 2 than you could ever think of in Component Studio 1. So we put our white border on there. All right. Let's another feature of a card in Uno is going to be to have that kind of offset oval thing that happens in the middle, right? So let's go ahead and we're going to hit our plus button up here. Plus is how you add new features to a layer group, or if you want to create a new layer group, you click down here, all right? So I want to, in our background, we're going to put that oval. So let's go ahead and hit plus up here, and I'm going to choose orb. So orb is another word for a circle or an oval or whatever. I'm just going to throw that in there, and of course, red isn't the right color for Uno. We need to change that. So let's go into our fill, and we'll just change that to white, because that's what it should be. But we need to do a whole bunch of other weird stuff to this, because this isn't what the oval looks like in Uno. So by default, everything gets kind of positioned around the safe zone, inside the blue dotted line. And we have variables for all that in Component Studio. So I could actually do design.safe.left, that's the leftmost side, inside the safe zone, that's the blue border. That's where this is getting positioned, right? And then for the top, it's the same thing. Design.safe.top comes to 75 pixels, so it's there. Now, if I had changed this one, let's say I changed this design.safe.left to design.trim.left, now it's out here up against this red line because there are these in there. And how did I get those things? How do I know they exist? Well, there are all of these functions around the design shortcut, so I can just come in here and click on one of these, and now I know how to do that, right? I can get those variables. Now, in this case, I could just hit set default to go back to the default variable, but I want to do something fancier. I want to go over here, click over here. I want to go to function. Every single function in Component Studio 2 is listed right here with kind of how to do it. There's also a help page that gives a lot more details. But in this case, I would like to use a function that it is built based upon how Component Studio 1 works, but it works in a way cooler way here, called Center Me X. People are familiar with that? All right. So I'm going to click Center Me X, and I'm going to just paste that right into here, and now I've got this function. By default, Center Me X centers on the design, but you can actually fill in, you can actually put in a name in here and say, center me on this layer. Ooh, right? Yeah, gives me chills. It's great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and center me X and center me Y. We're just going to paste these in here quick. Let's go ahead and also, we need to get that rotation in here. I happen to know that a Uno card is 28 degrees if we rotate it correctly. All right, so we've got that going for us. We do have to set our width and height. We could do some magic with this, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what the width and height of a thing is. It happens to be 475 pixels by 830 pixels, and that will get us exactly the right dimensions for that oval in Uno. Fair enough? Okay. So we've done enough with the little background color. I guess we could rename this to be like background orb or something. Oval there, just so we have nice names. You'll find out very quickly that naming things well in Component Studio 2 is very useful because you can actually reference things by their name, like that center me X, center me Y. If I just left it as untitled oval, and then I had another one later, how would I know the difference between those two untitled ovals, right? So you want to name things so that way you could type in here background oval, like that. Now this isn't going to work because I'm literally self-referencing, so that's not going to work. You can't reference the oval you're in. But Anyway, we'll get back to that a little later. So we're done with our background. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the background. I'm going to create a new layer group, and we are going to call this our top left corner. Okay? Top left. I can't type. It is a prerequisite that you do need to be able to type. Okay, so top left corner. So up here, in an Uno card, there's always, what's up there? Something's up there. Anybody? It's a little bit of text, little number, something like that. So we will call this our corner text, let's say. And let's go in here, and I'm just gonna set a width and a height because I happen to know what we need. It's gonna be about 200 pixels, roughly. You could play around in there and do that sort of stuff. And I know that I need some text in there. I'm gonna get that. Oops, minimize the wrong thing. I want to get in here. By the way, there is text right here. You just can't see it because of the color that we have associated with it. So I'm going to prove to you that it's there. I'm just going to type in something. Look at this. I just typed in blue. And so that is actually definable by you. Blue doesn't mean anything to Component Studio 2. It doesn't know. But up here, I've got styles, like legit, real styles like you would have in InDesign or Illustrator or any of those kind of things. Even Microsoft Word has styles, right? And you come in here and you define exactly what you want this to be. And in this case, the only thing I defined for blue was that it was going to be the color blue, right? So I could literally then type in a tag, blue, and turn any text into blue. Okay. But that's not what we want to do for this, so I'm getting off topic. All right.
Are the styles are they just in this design you're doing, or are they systemic across everything?
They're across your entire game.
Just the game?
Yeah. So your game will, across all the designs that you have in the game, you are sharing the set of styles. So that way you define it once and you can reuse it everywhere.
Okay. Is that easily exportable from one game to another?
Not yet, but there will be something for that, yes. I don't know if it'll be exportable or shareable or I don't know what yet, but there will be something, because there should be something. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. We don't want blue. We want to put in some text. Actually, let's format the color here, I think, first, right? So let's go over to text formatting, and I want to choose the default style for this little section right here. So I'm going to go corner. I've created a style called corner. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I'm going to get rid of this nonsense here. I'll just type some stuff in here. And there's where our corner text is going to go. It's white, it's big, etc. Except that I don't want this junk in here. I'm going to actually go over here to our row. I'm going to pick the corner variable, and I'm going to paste that in there. And, what's going on? Why isn't that working? It's because Wild doesn't have any text in the corner. But if I went over here to any other card, it will have some text in the corner. Now, somebody over here before we started recording mentioned that they would like it very much if, we'll note that we got this text and it's right up next to this border, right? Oh, shucks. Well, if I could just click move here and I can just drag that around. Okay. So there's one of your features done. Okay. So, what was I saying? Well, the default style is corner. We've got our position set. We've got our data. I need to, you know what I do need to do? I'm going to put this back to where it was. So I'm going to actually go back and set these because I lied to you. And those were in the right place. But what we need to do is, if I turn on Show Outline here, you can see my box that I have defined. I don't know if it's easy to see, but it's right there. Okay. I've got this box that's 200 pixels wide. What I really needed to do wasn't to drag that 2 over. What I need to do is center it within the box. So I'm just going to come over here and choose center and top alignment to middle. Now I've centered it in that box. I will turn off the box because we don't want that there. But now we have this in here, and if I start paging through, all of our stuff is centered, including if I go over here to draw 2, where we have our +2, it moves over and all that kind of stuff, right? Pretty kosher, good? All right, moving on. All right, so the next thing that we need for our top left corner is to deal with the fact that some of these things, like wild, have an image up there. So we're going to go into here and we're going to create a corner image, like so. And by default, Component Studio 2 always just gives you a CS logo as an image when you create a thing so that you have something there. You know, you don't want a blank spot. So it has that in there. We're going to go ahead and replace that though. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select, and I can choose from all the images that I've uploaded just right here. I can just, there, got an image. And in this case, I could choose wild, but that's not what I want to do here because I want it to be positional based on what it is that what row I'm actually looking to. So I want to go down here, go to row, and click image, and paste that in there. So it's the same image, but now if I switch to something else that has an image, I'm going to get the image, right? Okay, so we got that. So then we're going to put that image up into the corner a little bit here. And how we're going to do that is, remember we talked about center me X and how you could reference a layer? So I'm going to do center me X. And in this little spot here, I'm going to put in a couple of half quotes, and I'm going to name the corner up here. So I'm going to say the corner text box. So that way I don't have to reposition this image. I'm going to use the one I've already positioned and put it in the same damn place. So we're just going to go with, what do I need to go here? Corner text. Like so. And that's going to put it kind of in the right place. But it's too big right now, so it's kind of pushed down and it's off the side and all that kind of stuff. So we need to resize it. So one of the things that we need to do is change it to 150 pixels wide. But that kind of squishes it. So then we need to change it from maintain aspect ratio from stretch to proportional to the width. All right. So now we're starting to get something that looks like what we want. Right. We've got our image in the corner and it's doing what we need it to do. But there's a problem. That should be white because the text up there is white. So we should do something about that. Component Studio 2 has all these effects in here, and one of the effects you can do is what's called a color overlay. And that will literally take all of the visible pixels in an image and colorize them to whatever you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to say white. And that will be my overlay color. Okay? So now I've recolorized that image. The problem with that, though, is wild should not be white, because then we get that problem, right? So there's a way around that. So the cool thing is you saw me switch this little switch right here to enable the color overlay, right? I flip this switch, it enables the color overlay, right? The problem though is, or not the problem, the cool thing is that every single field, as I said before, is typable. So switches are even typable, which means that I can put code in there to turn on or off that switch based on what row I'm looking at. So let's do that quick. And actually, I'm going to open up this sidebar because it gives me a little more typing space. So instead of having true in that value right here, what we're going to do is we're going to type in row.name does not equal wild, then that's going to be on. Okay? So our row is wild, so now it's off. But if I go back here to the skip, it's on, right? So it's on for the reverse. Ooh, our draw 4 looks weird. We'll have to do something about that. So here's the problem with the draw 4. The draw 4 has both corner text and an image. It's a weird thing, right? So it's different than every other card in the Uno deck, is because it uses that text for the corner, but it uses an image in the middle. Every other card, it either has text in the middle and in the corner, or it has an image in the middle and in the corner, right? So we had to do something weird for this one. So I'm going to do another little thing with a switch. You can go down into the advanced area here, and this is what used to be called a conditional render in CS1, right? So I can, just like in CS1, I can turn this on or off, and I'm going to do that with a little bit of code. And what we're going to do is not row.corner. So what that's saying is, so in Component Studio 1, you would have typed a bang or an exclamation point to get a not. In here, you actually type the word not. So that reverses whatever this is. So this says if corner is not empty, no. If the corner is empty, we will display the image. If not, we're going to display the text. So now we're getting the text here, but if we go down to the wild, we're getting the image. Because if we look at our data set, now's the time I should be going to look at the data set. Let's open that up. So here's our data set. Let me blow that up a little bit, make it maybe a little easier to see. Okay. Here's our data set. And you can see that we have, this is this weird thing. We've got a thing here and a thing there. We have an image and we have a number. And actually, we should probably fix this for, oh, we already did fix it for the draw 2. So if we look at our text here, the draw 2 has this as well. But we didn't name a specific row. We did it with, if it has an image, or if it has text, use the text. But if it doesn't have text, then use the image. So if we go to draw 2, it should already be fixed. Boom, it's fixed. Okay. I stumbled around a little bit there. That was my fault. Component Studio 2 did the right thing. Hopefully you understood what was going on despite me stumbling a little bit with my words. Sorry about that. Okay, are we all good with how we built the corner and that it works and all that cool stuff? Okay, so in Component Studio 1, what would we do if we wanted that 2 to be down in the lower right corner? Does anybody know? Did you know what the function is? Yeah, there's a twirl step. Yeah. So in Component Studio 2, you don't need that. What we're going to do is we're done with this particular layer, this thing here. But we have 2 layers, right? We have two layers in this thing, and we also have this layer group. I'm going to actually do something fancy. I'm going to duplicate that entire layer group to the face. So now we have a whole other copy of that layer group. And I'm going to just rename it to bottom right. And then we're going to use a feature of the layer group now instead of the layers. So far, we've just been talking about what layers do. Let's talk about what layer groups can do. I'm going to go to layer or group position, and I'm going to rotate that group. I'm sorry? Rotates are always on the center. So you know you cannot set the origin for it. I know some people want to be able to do that. I don't think I'm going to do it. Yes, you can absolutely remove it after you've rotated it. Absolutely.
When you duplicate a layer group, does it automatically duplicate or change the names for any reference layers?
No. Because it's a
the reference name for your center VX now on the corner image? Referencing corner text copy?
Yeah, it's still referencing up here. No, it's you're talking about for the image.
Yeah, for the center VX.
It's still referencing this one, but then I'm rotating the whole layer, right? So it's still positioning. I could rename it to be the copy also, but it's just doing the right thing.
The copy's dynamic, then whatever you do the original, the copy will follow suit.
No. It's doing the right thing because we aren't moving it. To his point back there, he was saying we could move it after the fact. If I want to move it, I would actually need to rename this. So let's just do it for for accuracy's sake, let's say right corner text like that, and we'll change this one here. And then it worked for this example, but in reality, if you're going to move it around and stuff, you should actually go in and re-reference these things. So I just did that, and now if we moved it, so I could actually come in here and I click move on the group, and now if I click down here on the group and start moving it around, I can literally drag the whole group, and that includes dragging, and that includes if it was moving the images with it and stuff like that. Ooh, something really bad happened there. What is going on? I'm going to put this back and see what happens. Okay. I don't know what's going on there. I'll have to dig into that later. Another thing you can do is, let's say you're like, oh crap, I don't want that value. It maintains a history of values here for you. So if I type in, let's say I type this one in to be 50 now, something like this, and I moved it. Now everything that's ever been typed in here is historically there, so you can go back and do a different one. And if you just want the default value, whatever it was when it was created, you hit set default and it goes back to where it was, right? So I'm going to do that here and here, and now I'm right back in the corner where I was. Between sessions, it's stored permanently. So yeah, you can always go back to that. I think it remembers up to 10 revisions of the thing. So if you have, you've changed that value 11 times, the 11th one will be lost, but the previous 10 will be there. So, and if we decide we need more than 10, I can add more than 10. I just don't want the data to get so bloated with all that extra stuff. So, because that affects performance. Okay, so where was I? I got off corner here a little bit. Render, corner image, bottom right corner, rotate 180. Right, we need to deal with this center group here. So let's go ahead and create yet another group. We'll call this one center group, like that. And we will add some center text to the center group. And we're going to do something kind of similar to what we did before. So we could theoretically copy our top left corner into there, but there's just as much kind of moving around because we need it to be big again and centered and all that stuff. So I'm just going to create it from scratch again. So we're going to go over here. We're going to put in the text. We're going to say, we're going to check the row and grab row.corner. We're going to put into the center of this. And we're going to do something fancy with the styles here. So I showed you before that you could come in here and you could select a style that you had defined. We already did that, right? We've done that before. Now here's the fancy thing. Styles allow for something called inheritance. And if you're a programmer, you'll know what that means. But just to give you an idea, all of you were born of parents that allowed you inherited properties from them, right? So actually Component Studio 2 does something crazy advanced that even some programming languages can't handle, which is called multiple inheritance. But you do, because you have two parents, so that means you inherited values from multiple things. So what I can do is I can actually come in here to our default styles, and I've already selected center as a default style, but I'm going to also comma, and I'm going to put in, what am I going to put in there? I'm going to put in row.color. So now I've got two styles that I'm inheriting from. Not just, and this means that when I go back over here, let's actually show something where it'll actually, whoa. Oh, right, I haven't positioned it yet. That's why it's not, yeah. So anyway, it's actually inheriting both whatever is in the center style and whatever is in the red style in this case, because the row color is red, all right? So, and if we can see that if we go to our database, or our data set over here, the row color is red. So it's inheriting from both those two styles. The thing you need to know about multiple inheritance is the last right wins. So if there's any conflict between center and red, red is going to win, okay? But in this case, red only has a color and center only has a size and a position. So there's not going to be any conflict between them. So let's go, let's actually position this thing so you can actually see it though. So let's go to, let's see here. I want to go to horizontal alignment to center, vertical alignment to middle. And so now you can see the actual text that's in there. And we're going to also put in a conditional here. We're going to go down to advanced, and we're going to, in the render layer, we're going to do a little logic that says not row.image. So if it has, this is a little different, it's basically the opposite of what we did in the corner. Before we said, if it has a corner text, we're going to use the corner text and forget the image. This time we're saying, if it has an image, we're going to use that and ignore the corner text, right? So we're reversing them a little bit. So in this case, it's a 2. 2s don't have an image, but if we went to, let's say, a draw 2, we don't have the image in here yet, but you can see it didn't put the text in. We have the text up here, but there's no text down here because we have an image. We just haven't put that into render yet. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's finish this off by putting in the center image now. This is the last part of our design. And actually, I should call this center text because I already scolded you guys and told you that you must name things, so I should name things. All right, center text. Now let's put in our center image. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And again, it always puts up a Component Studio logo as the default thing, just so you have some reference of what is happening. Okay, so we got a center image, and I'm going to go into image here. And again, I could just select something, but I don't want to do that. I want to make it dynamic with a row variable. So I'm going to click row, and I'm going to click image, and I'm going to paste that in here. So now we're going to dynamically get the appropriate image for the row, right? So we've got that in there. And we want to do one more thing with this. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the center image, for the most part on these cards, is reflected of the color of the card. So a draw 2 isn't black. The image isn't black. The image would be red if it was a red draw 2. Okay? With the exception of obviously wild and draw 4. Those are full color, but we'll get into that. So we're going to do that color overlay that we did before, only this time we're going to do it based on the row color. So I'm going to go over here to Effects. I'm going to do a color overlay. I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to get row. I'm going to get color. I'm going to paste that in here. So now we're the appropriate color. But again, like I said, we don't want the wilds and other stuff to get colorized. That's not good. So we're going to fix that. And we're going to put in a little bit of conditional logic here on that enable button again. So this one's a little more complicated because it's got an and in it. Ooh. Okay. Row.name does not equal wild. We don't want the wild card to get colorized. So that's one. And row.name does not equal draw 4. So for these two things, we're going to not colorize it. And I'm going to show you a better way to handle this, but this is one. I just wanted to give you an and example, right? So we've got a little bit more complicated conditional logic here. But if we look at our draw 4 and our wild, they're both full color. But if we look at a draw 2, it is colorized appropriately, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So now let's do this the way you should do this. You don't want to name specific cards like this, like I just did. You can, and that might be the only way to do it in your particular data set. But if you have a more generic way to do it, where you can type less and it's more easy to understand, you should do it in a simpler way. So let's do it in the simpler way. If we go back to our data set here, and we look at what's different, what are the things that we can call out about those two cards that are different than all the other cards in the set, right? So what's different about these two cards that we can look at and look at this data set and go, it's obviously different. Anybody?
Color is black.
The color is black, exactly. So we can go, okay, if this card is black, then let's not colorize it. And so If row name or row.color, should say, color, is not black, we can get rid of this whole and here. Our draw 2 is still colored, but we get to our draw 4 and it is not, right? So it's simpler. This is easier to understand by just looking at it. And nobody else is ever going to see this code except you probably. Well, or you know, the GameCrafter support if you have to reach out to us for something. But nobody else is going to see this code, but it's easier for you to understand when you come up 4 months later and go, why is this thing getting colored? Make your code as simple as you can, because it'll be easier to understand for yourself. Okay, so we've gone through and we've created this entire deck. Let's go ahead and just page through them quick just to make sure that everything looks good. We've got red, 0, we got a 1. You can see that I'm paging through these things. By the way, I'm doing this live on the production server. This is not running off of my laptop, so this is a real world test. You guys are seeing, this is how fast Component Studio 2 runs, right? The reason it's running this fast is because everything that you are seeing is happening on my laptop despite it running on the server. So it's downloading the whole code base of Component Studio 2 into your web browser right here. And it's running locally. So I'm actually rendering these images locally so you don't have to wait for it to go to the server and come all the way back. And that means if your bandwidth is low, it'll actually run fast too, because you'll have to wait a little while for it to load all those fonts and images and stuff like that when you first start it up. But everything after that is doing all that stuff locally on your computer. And Alicia had her hand up.
You actually just said I was going to ask about the internet.
Ah, yes. So you do still need an internet connection because you need to get all that stuff downloaded, and you need an internet connection because all of the data is getting saved back to the server all the time, so that way if your browser crashes or whatever, you haven't lost any position. So you need an internet connection, but all these renders are going to happen way faster because they're all happening local. You don't have to wait for anything to download. So anyway, continuing on. We're going through all these cards, doing all this stuff. I might be going too fast. It's probably rendering a little slow here. Okay, so here, draw 2, draw 4. There's our, what is that called? The reverse. This is skip. And there's our wild card. Okay. So we've just completed our deck of Uno. Yeah. Ah, smart. Yes, I have only completed a quarter of it. So now I guess I got to go through this all again for red, green, blue. Yeah.
Also the thin white line of pixels.
Yeah, the thin light white. We could get that if we wanted to screw around with it, but this is a demo. And as Heather said, you guys can't make Uno anyway. So, okay. So, but you are right though that we only completed a quarter of it. Damn it. If only there was a quick way to generate a whole bunch of other cards, and there is. It's called enumerations. They're going to be your best friend. So, let's say I have this thing over here, and I've got red, green, blue, orange, what the hell, right? Purple, whatever. We can make any crazy thing that we want to do. And I just type that into this field right here for 0. And if I say no enumeration, we're going to enumerate based on color. If I go back over here and reload my data set by just clicking that little button, I've refreshed my whole data set right there. Then I go over here and I see, look at that. I've got 0 cards for all of these colors. So now am I looking at red? I'm looking at green. I'm looking at blue. Oh, that one's weird. Oh, did we do a color thing? What did we do here?
I don't think you have orange set as a style.
Oh, right. I don't have orange set as a style. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So I should type in the real colors, red, green, blue, and yellow. Right. Okay. And then we'll refresh. You're absolutely right. I didn't have an orange style, but we could make an orange style in the future. But now we do have a yellow style. So there we go. Okay, so we've now created all the colors, at least for that one card, and you could see how we could easily copy and paste this into all of our rows, and we'd be done. But copying and pasting data is bad, because then if I wanted to add orange in the future, I'd have to do that again. So let's do something even fancier. Let's go up here and copy this field, and I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to click this button up in the upper left corner. This is called data set variables. I'm going to set in my data set variable card, colors, whatever you want. I'm going to make that a text, and I'm going to put my thing in here like that, and I've created a variable now. So now if I go into my data set, even the data set has the sidebar in it, but it has a different set of things over here. It has, for example, data set variables. So now I've got vars card colors, and if I paste that into here, now I've got that variable here. And if I copy that and just highlight all of these, and I paste, I've now pasted it into all of those. And I could do that again down here. And now the cool thing is, if I wanted to add another color, I can literally just add it in one place and it's everywhere, right? Because I created a variable and I shared that variable across all these. And again, if I evaluate that variable, if I look here, the calculated value is red, green, blue, yellow, which is what I had typed in there before. But it's getting it from a variable. So that way, if I need to update that, I only need to update it in one place, not 13 rows of data. And now, 13 rows of data, you're like, who cares, right? But when you have 100 rows of data, that actually matters. That sort of stuff matters. So anyway, that's what you got. And so then when I come back over here and hit refresh on my data set, not only do I have the colors for 0, but I have the colors for all of them. So that's it. Yeah.
You had the variable set for everything but the wild, which you were set to black. Could you set a separate variable for those?
For black?
Yeah.
Yep.
In case, like, if you needed more.
Yep.
Something like that, and then replace that with the variable where you had the not black, so that it would function that way.
Yes. Well, no. Yes and no.
Okay.
Let me demonstrate what you're talking about so that everybody else can understand what we're talking about. Okay. So he was asking, could I use a data set variable for black? Yes, absolutely. So I'll just come in here. I'll set a data set variable for black. We're just going to call it black for this time. And actually, we'll call it for wild, because wild cards are all black, right? Draw 4s are wild even if they're not called wild, but they are wild in that you can change the color. So we got black in here. We've created a new variable called black, or called wild. So then what we're going to do is go in here and change this to data set wild, paste that in there like so, and we're going to paste it in over here too. And so that way in the future, if we want to change our wild colors, we can do that. Now, there was a second part to his question though, and that was, could we then use this data set variable that we just set over here where we said something was black? If it's black, don't do it, right here, right? So we had this little code over here. If row.color does not equal black, then we do our stuff, right? We do our colorization of that image. Well, the problem is that if I look down here at my shortcuts, there is no data set variables down here. And that's because data set variables don't exist in the designer. They are data set variables. They are for that thing, right? So if you want a variable that can cross boundaries like that, in Component Studio 1, you had what? Anybody? Project variables. So in Component Studio 2, what is a project called? Right, you have game variables. So instead of going over here to our data set and creating this variable for black, I'm going to just go ahead or for wild, I'm going to go ahead and delete that one out of there because we don't really need it, or we won't in a moment here. I'm going to come over here. That little dice symbol right there is for game variables. And you can edit game variables right in the editor. That was one of the things you were asking about, right? Boom, we got it. So we're going to go wild here, and we're going to paste black into here. And now there is one little caveat, though, with game variables. Game variables, in fact, do exist in both places, but they do not auto-sync between screens. I have 2 tabs open here. So I will need to refresh the tab upon which, if I created it in this tab, I need to refresh the tab in order to load that game variable. I could make it reload those. It's kind of heavy on the rendering option, so it might as well reload the whole page. We'll talk about it later if somebody really wants a reload button. It's going to basically reload the whole page because since everything can rely on game variables, everything needs to get reloaded if you do that. So for now, I haven't built it because you might as well just refresh the page. The whole thing is getting reloaded. So anyway, but now that I've refreshed the page, we go over here and we do in fact have our wild variable. And so now I can go, we can go back to our data set and I can go into here and replace our data set vars wild to go to game vars wild. We'll paste that one in there. And we can paste this one over here. So now our data set is using that game variable. And then we can come over to our code and go to our center image where we have our row.color equals black. Now we can paste this in here. I'm going to get rid of this extra bracket. And I'm going to, so I've got games.vars.wild. We're going to just replace black with that. So I'm just going to delete it like so, right? So now we've got, if row.color does not equal wild, we'll do our thing, right?
You do that with all three, the corner text and the center.
I'm sorry?
And you can do that with the corner text and the center, right?
No, because the corner, remember that they're inversed. In the center, we're going to display the image above all else. But in the corners, we're going to always display the text preferentially, and we have a different set of code. We could do it this way, I suppose, but we have a different set of code for the draw 4 because we have, we got to do it here though. Ooh, hey, this gets to show me, or I get to show you a new feature right here. So look at this, look at all this red over here. If something is wrong, Component Studio will make you aware of it, and it will allow you to drill down. So this was closed, right? I didn't know something was going on with the background. So I come over here. Oh, the background layer has a problem. Okay, so let's go in there. Okay, fill has a problem. So we're going to go into fill. Oh, it's the fill color 1 is a problem. What's going on with fill color 1? Okay, so we go over here. It says it's not a color. Row.color is not a color. Why would that be, I wonder? And so what we can do, in this case, we can mouse over row.color, and it's telling us literally what was rendered into there. It's 000 NaN. NaN means not a number, and colors are numbers in the web world. So there's something weird going on there, and we have to debug that. Now, in this case, we happen to know that we just changed this thing out. So we've got black in here. Black is not a color. Why is that not a color? Now, maybe it is that if I went into my variables here and I look at this, do I have a space in here? Nope, I don't. Why is that not a color?
Because the value is blank.
Oh, it is because, no, the value is down here. The value is black. Down here, this is if I was adding another variable down here. I'm not sure why this isn't working.
You have to reload the data set.
Have you redefined it as a game variable? Did you insert the redefining it as a game variable?
It is a game variable over here, and row.color is coming through here. So I'm not sure what's going on actually in this particular case. This should be working, and it's not. I don't know what is causing this background box to not have it. Yep, it's alpha and it might be buggy. I'm going to have to figure this one out. This one should be working, but normally it's good still that it showed up because now I can show you that Component Studio, if there is a bug, or not a bug, if there is something wrong with what you have typed in, it will tell you something is wrong, and if you go into the sidebar, it will give you an error message that should give you a hint as to what's going on. In this case, I think there's a bug of some kind. I'm not sure what. I could try changing the variable to orange. All right, let's change the variable to orange.
When you change the variable, do you have to refresh both the data set and the game, or and the
No, if you change it in a tab, that tab is good. It's going to refresh all the stuff in that tab. So I changed it in the data set. So now I'm going to reload the game page and see what's up. I don't know what's going on there. I think we just encountered a bug that's going to take me some time, and I'm going to have to debug it and figure out what's going on. We do get the orange background. There's the draw 4. Or maybe it was a temporary glitch. Maybe I didn't load something. I don't know. That's weird, because now it's not erroring out. What if we put it back to black and see what happens again? Yeah, but maybe. I've used black in lots of places, though, so it shouldn't be doing that. We'll see. All right, let's go back to draw 4 and see if it's still hosed. Nope, it's working. I don't know. Gremlins. It's Gremlins is the problem. Gremlins is the problem. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I didn't reload it. It is possible that I didn't reload it after I made that change. Anyway, so you've now seen how that stuff works. I have spent my entire hour, but I am available for questions. So let's pop through a few and see if we can answer a few in kind of fast pace. You had your hand up first. What's up?
Finally, card count, because you might have multiple of the same card.
Finally, card count?
So you added all the different colors, but there's currently only one wild card and one draw 4.
If the quantity is set over here, so there's 4 wilds and 4, and there's 2 of each color of these. So, because that's what it is, and there's only 1 of each 0 because that's what the appropriate count is. Yeah.
Do you still have to do, for underlines and stuff like that, do you still have to do a separate font for those? And would that be controlled by the style because the 6 and the 9 have underlines on them?
So you got a couple of different things going on there. Yes, you have a different font for underline versus, or not underline, but for like bold versus italic. That's a property of a font. And so a lot of apps will actually have a font and a font family, which will allow you to select different variants of a font. It's still 2 fonts or 3 fonts or whatever. It's just kind of hiding that from you by doing that little thing. I'm not doing that here because you still have to pick all the individual variants that you want to load in the font palette system, because otherwise I'm making you download a bunch of extra crap that you don't want. So like if a font family has 12 variants, you only want to pick the 3 that you're using or whatever, right? So that you're saving a whole lot of bandwidth that you're not downloading. So I'm not doing the font family thing. I could do it. It's not going to get you much because I'm not letting you have the whole font family unless you want the whole font family. Oops. Knocked my thing off. So, but yes, anyway, for that, you still have to do separate fonts, but you can use styles as we showed to do. Style has underline in it, and underlines have nothing to do with a font. That is just a decoration. So yeah, you can actually go into. I have overlines, I have line throughs, and I have underlines, and you can set all of those. So, and you can even set a different color and a different thickness for each one if you want. So you could have all 3 of them simultaneously. Alicia, I think, was up next. Maybe, I don't know. Let's do Alicia. Uh-huh.
It doesn't have a font family with italic, it just allows you to tilt the letters.
Yeah, I don't do that. Okay. I have very little control over the font system because it's web. So I don't actually have direct access to the font metric because that is considered a security problem. So I literally, I have to even guess what the baseline is of the font because I don't know why it's a security problem. But anyway, you had your hand up, yeah.
Do you support putting images in line with text?
Absolutely. Yep. So that's actually a cool feature we should just talk about quickly. So let's go over here. Let me show you. I haven't shown you the image manager yet. You can create any number of folders. You upload images directly in the game designer or in the dataset editor, either way, because then you can use them either place. And when you upload them, it automatically creates a variable out of that. So the variable for this is reverse, and it's just taking the file name to make the variable, but you can rename that if you want. I can click here and rename it, right? But those variables are now referenceable all over the place. You can do that. And you can even do stuff like this. Like if I wanted this reverse symbol to be an inline image, like you said, I can actually click icon here. This little button, see when that turns green, that means it has become an icon in the style system. And so that means that I can come over, did I just do that there? I should have done that over here. Let me come over to the designer, I'll reload, and I'll show you that I have done that. See, it is still green, okay? And so then, if I come in here and I add some text, let's do here. I'm gonna go add some text, and let's type in some text. Can you guys see that text up there? Yeah. Okay. If I type in some text, I can go reverse. Boom. And now it shows, I mean, it's really small. So let's see if do I have a style for like big or something? Oh, center is pretty big, but it's also white. I don't know if this will work. Let's do it anyway. Center. It's a little too big. A little too big. A little too big. Let's go ahead and use text formatting and fit to size. Boom. Okay, so there you can see it a little bit right there. That's your thing, your icon that's in there. So it has become an icon that becomes a text or a style tag, and it will follow style tags, other style tags. So if you want to change the size of it, you can literally wrap it in a style tag of the size that you want it to change to. So it's, yeah, you get that. Yeah.
With the style tags, could you nest them and then whatever's outside of thing on the other thing, right? Considered like that?
Yeah. So you can absolutely nest tags. So like I've got my bold tag here. If I had a red tag, I could put that around the outside, and now it's bold and red because I put them together. You can do, so you can actually do inheritance. That's part of the inheritance system. So you can do inheritance 3 ways. You can put a body, or you can put a style on a text area, or multiple styles, and that gets you in your inheritance. You can do the nested tags like we just talked about. Bold and red makes it bold red, right? Or you can actually come into the styles themselves. If I was in blue here and I go down to advanced, I can inherit from styles right in here. So I can make all kinds of composable styles right in the style system. So yeah, you have full control over that inheritance system. Anybody? Marcin? Can you? Can you? I'm sorry.
You put variables as your font text.
Oh, hell yeah, you can use that. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go back and put. You know what? Maybe I should just get into a different style or a different thing that isn't quite so. Here, let's just create a new one. Create a new design, and I'm just going to go over here since we're kind of just dicking around at this point. All right. So let's add some text. By the way, when you create a new design, some blank. Oh, I didn't create a new game. That's my problem. Let's go back. Let's go out here and let's create a new game. And we'll just call it Untitled. That's fine. Create a design. We'll call that Untitled. That's also fine. We're going to edit it. Okay. When you create a new game, some default styles are automatically there for you just to give you something. You can delete them, manipulate them however you want. Okay. So let's say we had in our data set, you can actually edit your data set right from the designer. You just can only edit one row at a time. So see how I've got quantity and name here? If I went over to this data set, I have quantity and name. If I add a column here quick, let's add a column of, let's say, color. All right? And I will make that a color field. Add column. I've got a color. I'm going to close that. I'm going to back here over here and hit refresh. Now I've got a color column here that I can edit. So as I go through my rows, I have all these. If I want to add a new row, I literally just hit add row. And now I've got multiple rows in this thing. So I'm going to actually change this. You know what? I don't want to use, I'm going to change one more thing. Sorry. I'm working on the fly here, so I'm doing a little stuff. I'm actually going to change this back from a color column back to I want to change column type. I'm going to go back to text because I want to create color names. I don't want to create color numbers, right? So I want to change this to red, and I want to change this one to blue. Okay. So close this. I'm going to refresh. So I've got two rows. One of the rows has a red column color, and the other one has a blue. So let's go into our styles quick, and let's create a style. This one will be called red, and we will go into the font properties, and we will color it red, like so. Okay. Or you could type in any value of red, like if I wanted to make this a deep red or whatever, you get the idea. Okay, so I've got that. And actually, I needed to create one more while I'm here. I'm going to create a style of blue, and I'm going to come into the font, and I'm going to choose whatever freaking blue I like, because blues are cool. We're going to choose that blue right there. Okay, so I've got blue and I've got red. I've used names for the colors, though. So now, when I go into my text, and I'm typing in my text, I'm just going to say, this is blue, and this is red. Okay, so just to make it understandable, I'm typing it out first. Oops, I forgot to I didn't close my tag completely there. Okay, so this is blue and this is red. You can see what's going on there pretty easily, right? Now, what if I didn't know what color I wanted to go to his point? What I can do is come in here to my row, I grab color, I fill in where it says blue, and I fill in the end blue tag, and now I'm dynamically creating tags on the fly, and it's still blue in this case, but when I go to this other row, it's red. Because I'm creating colors on the fly, or I'm using names that were specified in my data set to call a style. And there are other things that you can do too. It's probably a little too advanced for this, but you can get a little crazy. Let's do it, I guess. So you can do I can do attributes on these things. I think fill color is the thing I'm looking for here, and I want to do just, let's say 00FF00. You need to know the HTML colors to make this work. Am I doing that the wrong thing? Is it not fill color? All right, let's go to the help. Help.Component Studio. If I go over to Component Studio 2, if I go over, click on Styles over here, and I go to Style Tags, and if I scroll down here, it shows all these different little attributes that you can put onto the thing. And I want to look for, what do I want to look for? Oh, it's just fill. That's what it is. It's not fill color, it's just fill. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to change this to fill, and now that one's green. Because even though it is the style of red, I am overriding through inheritance, the last write wins. So this, me typing it locally here, is literally the last write. That is the last chance before something gets done. I am overriding the color red and changing it to green by using that little attribute there. So you can get crazy.
Can I put a variable in the attribute?
Hell yeah, you can put a variable in the attribute. Come on, what do you think this is? Okay. All right, next question. Yes?
It's hard to see. In the data set, obviously, we're still doing name and quantity at the beginning. But I see that, like, the trash can icon, but what's the other icon that's there in the actual data set?
In the data set, so we go over here and I click this, it'll open up the data set. Let me blow this up to make it a little easier to see.
Okay, so it's a copy.
Yep, so you can duplicate a row with this. There's all kinds of fanciness that you can do in this data set editor. This is literally a spreadsheet, so you could take like a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet and literally paste it in here if you wanted to, because this is a spreadsheet. You can also right-click on a row to do some stuff. You can also use these drop-downs to do stuff. So I'm not going to go through all these individual things that you can do there, but there's all kinds of fanciness in this thing. If you're using the data set editor, like a lot of people use, Google Sheets or whatever to make their data sets. I like to use the data set editor myself. So when I'm adding a bunch of rows all at once, I'll just type in 10, hit rows, boom, I've got 10 new rows I can type into. Yeah.
like, for example, like Adobe Illustrator, where you can have like a vector symbol that you can put in multiple places. Like you can do it with a bitmap image. If you upload an image, you can put an image in multiple places. Do you support that for vector graphics?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I understand what you're saying now. He's asking, can you upload vectors, SVGs, to Component Studio? And the answer is, hell yeah, you can. You just go into the image manager like any other image, and you select one. I'm going to create a folder here. You select a vector, and you upload it here. You just hit the upload button and upload a vector. Now, there are some caveats. First of all, Firefox sucks at SVGs. So if you're using Firefox, don't use SVGs at all. Second thing is, SVGs have what's called a view box in them. We're getting technical, but if you went back to Marcin's talk earlier, you might have caught on to it a little bit. They have this thing called a view box. And the view box is basically, how big is this thing by default, right? And the problem is that I'm using, so behind the scenes, you guys don't know this, but I'm using a video game engine behind the scenes to do all this rendering, okay? So literally a video game engine in your browser that is rendering all this stuff. And video game engines, when they're doing rendering, they're using your 3D graphics card to do that. And so I'm using your 3D graphics card to do that, which means that I can render very fast. It's great. But 3D graphics cards cannot work on vectors. They need raster images to do their calculations. So it converts your SVG into a raster at whatever the view box size is specified at in that SVG. So if that view box size is small, it will consider that image to be small. And so there are some caveats with working with vectors, but you can upload a vector. So anyway, next question, if anybody's got one. Yes?
You said that Firefox is not so great, so like best browser, since everything's running in the browser, is what? Chrome?
All of them work great. Like Firefox works great, except for vectors. Okay? Safari works great, except there's one thing that Safari can't do, because it doesn't support a feature that I'm using here. We've got the colorblind simulation thing going on. Safari, see where it says right here, incompatible with Safari. Colorblind filters do not work with Safari. Nothing changes here, no matter what I do. But in Chrome and Firefox and Edge, they work great, right? So every browser has some quirk that is going to have a problem of some sort. Chrome works great with every feature, but it's a huge pig of resources, so it might crash your whole damn computer. So anyway, so they all have their quirks. Use whatever browser you want. Just know that you're going to have some quirks. Okay. I think there was, okay, what?
Is it possible to do multiple sets of enumeration?
No. You can do exactly one enumeration. Yeah. You can have as many comma-separated items in there as you like, but one column can be enumerated. Next. Marcin. Absolutely. So if you go into the image uploader and you go into a folder that has some images, if you upload new images that have exact same name as the image that's already in that folder, it will overwrite that image rather than creating a new image. And so it will reuse the settings. So if that image was already an icon, the new image when it uploads will also be an icon. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Will it prompt you first when it does that? Or
Nope, it's just going to do it. So
Prefer it that way.
yeah, it's just going to overwrite if it's in the same folder. If you had another, let's say so I said before that the images all get variables attached to them. The variables have to be unique across your entire game because that's the nature of variables, right? So they have to be unique. Because we're going to share the images across the entire game, all the variables have to be unique across the game, which means that you could have a variable, or you could have an image with the same variable in another folder. That would not overwrite the image in the other folder. It would create version 2 of that thing. So it would, if you uploaded something called reverse, like we had here, in another image folder, it would create reverse 2 variable because it has to be unique, but it's not going to overwrite that one in the other folder because you're uploading it into this folder, and that's not the same thing. So yeah.
I think you mentioned this before when you were talking about the image variables on Facebook. Are the variables done by folder.image or just image?
Just image.
Okay.
So it's images dot variable name dot URL or dot width or whatever variable you want off of the image. And you can see that if we go over here to, let's add an image. go here, and I go into here, and I go into here, and I select, oh no, that's not what I want to do. I'm sorry. I want to go up into the images manager. Let's upload an image. Do I happen to have an image around that's work safe? Let's put ourselves a sea turtle mouth. All right. I'm doing Fishmas right now. So, okay. So when we look at this, I can click on this clipboard here, and I can see that I've got a couple of different variables here. So if I click on, let's say, URL here, and then I go over here and paste that variable into this field right here. And it might be easier to see if we go over here. So, okay. We go over here. So it's images.seaturtlemouth.url. Creates this URL here, which then renders as an image out here. Make sense? Okay. Any other questions, comments, scathing rebuttal? No? Okay, yeah.
I assume most of us would be able to use Google Sheets to upload and or making whatnot, but is the Google Sheets upload, I know, Component Studio 1, there's been some issues that sometimes where you could upload it as like live from Google Sheets, and there's other times where Google is being dumb, and so we needed to download it as a CSV and then upload it. Will both those formats still be supported going forward, basically?
Yeah, so Google Sheets in CS1 has this thing called Live Update, which allows you to literally click a button and sync it back across. But you could also export it as a CSV, like you said, and import a CSV. Now, the problem with Google Sheets is that that live export thing, it only writes to its export. It's got like a cached export, and it only writes there every X number of minutes, and I don't know what that number of minutes is. So sometimes when you hit the Live Update sync, the changes you just made don't sync across, and that's where you would download a CSV file and do it. I have no control over that because it's Google, right? They're not going to listen to me. So we will have the live sync feature back, but it'll have the same caveats as CS1 because it's freaking Google. So I can't do anything about it. It's not a Component Studio problem. It's a Google problem. Now, I'm going to use a different API in Google. API is just the way you connect things together. I'm going to use a different API from Google, so it's possible there will be different, like it won't take 15 minutes for it to sync or whatever the thing is, but I don't know because I'm not in charge of Google. So CSV is already in here. There is no Google Sync in the dataset editor yet because we're still in alpha and I don't have all the features done yet. Which now might be a good time to talk about features quick. To get to beta, there are several features that need to be added yet. There needs to be a way to export and import a design. So if you design something, you could export that file and share the file with me, and I could import that design, right? That needs to exist. There needs to be an export to Tabletop Simulator. That does not exist yet. There is a one to export to a print and play PDF and the Game Crafter, but the Tabletop Simulator one isn't there yet. I need to write a whole bunch of documentation and make videos, and I need the Google integration to be done. Those are the things that need to be done. Once those things are done, we're going to be in beta, and at that point, it's really not about features anymore. It's just about, did you guys report any bugs this week? If not, we're at stable, right? But if you do, well, then we're going to be in beta for a while yet because I got to keep fixing bugs. What I'm saying is, hopefully by the end of December, we will be in beta. And so sometime in January or February, it'll officially be stable. And then after that, we can start talking about other new features that people want. But for right now, I just need to get the bare minimum of what CS1 had for everything. Right? There's a lot of stuff that this can do that CS1 couldn't even dream of doing, but there's also those kind of bare minimum things that have to be done. So that's where we're at for features. All right, any other questions, comments? Yeah, that's fine.
When you get to the TTS exporting, honestly, I've been utilizing CS a lot in the last year and a half because in the digital space, for play testing, etc.
Yep.
Is it still going to work in the exact same, like the same way as it does in CS1, where it's going to be generate kind of like the image, especially for cards, for example, like a 10 by 7 image, etc., or is
have no idea. Haven't even started looking at it yet. At the bare minimum, it'll do the same as it did before. I may throw in some extra bells and whistles. I don't know. I have to look. It's been 5 years since I wrote that code, and I don't know what has changed in Tabletop Simulator because I don't like Tabletop Simulator, so I don't use it. So I need to look at what has changed in Tabletop Simulator to see what's possible now. I'm sure there's all kinds of new things that weren't there 5 years ago when I wrote it. So if there's something that I can do that I couldn't do before, I'll probably put it in there. But if it's taking a lot of time, I'm going to do it later. So it'll be there, but it will be a feature request for later. So I just don't know is my answer. Anyway, any other questions, comments? Whoa, did I run you guys out of comments and questions? Is that even possible? Uh-oh, damn.
I have some technical questions, but I'll ask you later.
Oh, all right. We can do that if you want. So yeah, if there's anything, so I'm gonna, Jamie and I have to clean up and do that stuff before we leave here. So I'm gonna be around. So if you guys have questions that you want to ask not here, right? Like if you want to ask personally, feel free. Come up. We're just gonna be putting stuff away, so ask questions. And also participate in the Facebook group, the Discord channel, that sort of stuff, because it's really important. If I don't get feedback on what's already there, it's really hard to get to alpha or get out of alpha into beta and into final stable so that you guys can feel comfortable using it. So start using it. If you're doing it, and as a little incentive for you, tough love, Component Studio 1 is never getting another release ever again. Nothing. Okay? It's dead. Now, I'm not going to kill it completely. It will still be there. You can continue to use it, but it will never get anything ever again. Component Studio 2 is getting all the hotness. Okay? So if you want hotness, then you need to come to Component Studio 2. So there's my little carrot and my stick. You can continue using Component Studio 1 if you want, but then you're old school, man. So come on over to the new school. Like I said, I designed all of the games that I brought here to ProSpiel in Component Studio 2, so it is ready for prime time. Unless you're a Tabletop Simulator exports, then it is not ready for prime time just yet, but it will be soon. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow at ProSpiel.